Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben, and in today's video I would like to talk about the Star Wars fans. Specifically, what is it that divides the Star Wars fandom? Why are we constantly at each other's throats? We never seem to agree on anything. There's constant social media wars, there's YouTube videos with controversy that come out and make fans angry all the time. Well, in order to answer this question, in this video I would like to cover three topics. The first one, we will try to identify in broad terms what is Star Wars? And then I'll give you my thoughts on what I think specifically agitates the fans and makes them bicker and fight each other and divides the fandom. And the last segment will be for us to analyze and see how can we move forward and actually have fun and enjoy this franchise and let other fans enjoy it even if there's something that we dislike. So let's begin with this broad question. What is Star Wars? Here is an explanation. It's a space opera with elements of science fiction and fantasy with a classical heroic Greek motifs. Okay, that's a pretty accurate description. Another fan could say, well, it's a Skywalker family saga, a story of fathers and sons, and it's about the fall and redemption of Darth Vader. This was George Lucas's description of it. Okay, pretty solid, on point. And yet a third fan would say, well, it's a set of fun blockbuster action movies with cool lightsaber battles and spaceships and stuff like of that nature, and that's what I enjoy. Well, that's also accurate. The point I'm trying to make is that all of these answers are correct. There is no one solid textbook definition of it. It's a cultural phenomenon. It is so broad. It spreads across different media. It has comic books. It has movies. It has video games. There's so much in it. It is so interwoven and complex. And I think we add to it because as fans, as audience, as admirers of art, we are also different. And human beings are pretty complex, including our worldview, our upbringing, our cultural backgrounds, and so forth. So I think it greatly depends on who is looking at it. It depends on age demographic. It depends on your personal interests that you might have in life. It depends on your cultural background, right? Because fans around the world enjoy this franchise. Japan, Eastern Europe, Africa, you name it. Whatever part of the world you come from, Alaska, you know what Star Wars is, right? And just to give you a tiny example that you may personally relate to is, let me give you my story, how I come into it as a fan. I was born in Russia, right, in 1981, and my dad bought us our very first VHS player, and he brought the original Star Wars trilogy on tape with cheap dubbing, and they were pirated copies because we never had access to the original content, and that's how we grew with it. And to me, Star Wars meant good family time, sitting down with my dad, and it was sort of his passing of the torch. He still very much enjoys watching these epic Marvel and DC movies, something that's sometimes very superficial on the surface kind of sci-fi entertainment or deeper stuff, with something like Dune. He enjoys it all. And for me, as a kid, it was nice to kind of like carry on what his passion is. I'm pretty sure some of you guys will relate. And another aspect that I wanted to talk about to answer this broader question, what is Star Wars, is I think we need to take a look at the function of art and how it communicates ideas, right? Because I believe art is an ongoing process. It's never solid set in stone. It's never a static phenomenon. It constantly shifts and evolves depending on what sort of audience is looking upon it, depending on what era we're living in. For example, you go to a museum and you take a look at Mona Lisa. Obviously, you can't resurrect Leonardo da Vinci and ask him, hey, what's your painting about? You had the original artist's intent, and then you have the public eye. You have the admirers of art go to the museums and have their own interpretations. Of course, there's academia that will give you one answer and it's very learned and researched process. But then you have casual fans who go into museums or watch a movie on Netflix and something like this. And based on their world view, they'll form their own opinion of what they just experienced. And when it comes to Star Wars, we have these two major pillars. We have the artist, the creator, George Lucas himself, and his own interpretation of what he was trying to tell the fans. And then, of course, we have the fan reaction and how each and every one of us internalizes that story. For George Lucas, he always mentions, his reaction to the Vietnam War, and he had wanted social commentary of the events that transpired there, of how this huge, dominating industrial empire is versus this technologically inferior group of people who are fighting for the right cause. He also mentions in his other interviews during the prequel era that those are children movies, and that's why the language is so simple and digestible for younger group of viewers. Even the politics are very simply put in that trilogy in terms of wording and script. George Lucas also says, look, my franchise is about the Skywalker family, right? It's a story of Anakin Skywalker and his son Luke Skywalker, and it concludes in episode 6. But then, just to give you a concept, an idea of how that story shifts and evolves, we also get Luke and Leia in episode 5 share that kiss, right? And later on, we learn in episode 6 that they're actually twins of a single of Darth Vader and his dead wife. And then we see that this idea has evolved throughout the trilogy. And also, George Lucas himself says that in episode 5, he needed a plot twist, and that's why the very, very highly guarded secret of Darth Vader becoming Luke's father was something that they had to invent as they went along. If you guys don't have to believe me on this, Google it, take a look on YouTube videos. There's a number of prominent YouTubers who did wonderful, wonderful videos detailing that event. Actually, Star Wars Theory, I just recently watched his video. He does a wonderful job. I love his content. And he talks about how George Lucas changed Vader's role as they were making the original trilogy. And then this is one aspect of it. This is the creator telling us of what he was trying to create. And then we look at the audience, the fans, ourselves, right? Our interpretations are greatly based on who we are. For some of us, it's universal themes of a young person and a coming of age story that we can relate to. For other fans that I personally have talked to who are Christian or Catholic, they say, well, you know what? I really related to Anakin Skywalker, almost Christ-like figure who sacrificed himself, who tried to save his wife, and in the end he became the villain. So he was in a way crucified, right, for his actions. So that's interesting too, an interesting parallel, and the redemption of Anakin Skywalker is similar to kind of like resurrection of Christ, which I can totally understand. I don't think it's a stretch when fans go into a story, whether it's a movie or a book, and extract meaning for themselves. That's how we interact with media. This is how we, as admirers of art, interact with it and personalize it and internalize it and make it our own and interesting and create meaning ourselves. And that's why I think everyone's opinion matters on what Star Wars is. And I think the fans' interpretation and understanding of art and having continued passion for it is what keeps the art alive. So once again, to reiterate the point that I believe Star Wars will far outlive its creator and all of us combined. My generation and generations beyond, and kids, my grandkids will still be watching Star Wars and enjoying new iterations of it. So I think it's very important to underscore the fact that it's the viewer, the audience, and our participation in it, which is just as vital to the art's existence as its own creator. Next segment, let's talk about what I think divides the fans. This is obviously my personal opinion. And so to answer this question, I think it's important to look at an idea or a concept of personal space. What is personal space? I would basically summarize it by saying it's your worldview, right? It's your own set of morals. It's your own opinions. It's how you like to think and how you make sense of the world around you. And I think people in general, not just Star Wars fans, become confrontational when they feel that their personal space is being challenged, right? Give you an example. Hey, let me explain to you what Star Wars means. No, hold on a second. Let me explain to you what George Lucas meant when he created Darth Vader and then he went and made prequels about Anakin Skywalker. Immediately, when somebody else tells me that, it feels like my own values or my own interpretations or set of ideas have no merit. It feels like you're trying to mute everything that I want to say and you superimpose your ideas on top of mine, right? You're invading my personal space. I think that's one of the biggest things that creates all the drama, specifically pertaining to social media. And personal opinions get involved, right? For example, you interact with somebody on Twitter, which, like I just did a few hours ago on my, social channel on Twitter, trying to put a post. You say a paragraph, the most, or a sentence, and it is so easy to misrepresent what you're trying to say because there's so few words and details involved. And for the person on the other side, it's very hard to misunderstand what is it that you're trying to say. Especially when you say something very emotionally driven. The next topic, which we'll delve into in this segment. For example, somebody says, well, I don't like sequels. I think they're garbage. Or I don't like Revenge of the Sith. I think that movie's bad. It's such a short a statement, and it doesn't fully represent, well, why do you think this way? Was it the script? Are you trying to analyze something there? Are you trying to tell me that, your idea, your thoughts on who Anakin Skywalker is in the original trilogy is vastly different from prequels? That's why you don't like it. When you say something so brief, it is very easy for the person on the other end to kind of ad-lib and say, oh, so that's what he thinks, and add their own meaning to your words. And emotions get involved because they feel like their thoughts, which are just as important as yours, are now being neglected, and they say they want to respond now. They go to that famous, gift where you bang on the keyboard and you try to respond in kind, and things start getting emotional. Which is the second thing I wanted to mention. I feel that because of that shortness of text, that short exchanges, people hardly ever go and read whole sentences or paragraphs that fans sometimes put on social media, like I see on Facebook, and try to explain their points. People generally don't read that, and because we are dealing with faceless forms of communication, the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, you name it, and people don't feel a sense of consequence of their words or responsibility for what they're saying. They sometimes don't even understand they might hurt other person's feelings, or they're being assholes. There's no word to put it. It's a word in the dictionary. It means something, and it's there for a reason. It's you disregard everything that is being said, or you take something that was very short and written 2.5 seconds at face value, and you immediately try to turn it on its head and add a meaning that was not intended by the original, poster, and you start getting into it. And it's such a shame that we can't see each other face to face, because when you meet somebody in a public space, right, like a library, which I often did, and you ask somebody's opinion, well, there's more repercussions there to what you're going to say. First of all, in public, you want to be, or at least seem to want to be polite, right, and courteous, and tell the person, well, okay, I heard what you're saying, but I disagree. Or in high school, right, you're sitting in a classroom, when somebody raises their hand and supplies an answer to a teacher's question, you also want to project the fact that you're smart, that you're intelligent, and you're not angry, and you're not trying to fight another person physically and go, jump on them, but you're not trying to say, well, hold on a second, I think, you're wrong here, but let me try to explain this. You conduct a conversation in a very different way. Things often get very emotional among fans, and that's the second reason I think that divides the fandom a lot. For example, you as a fan have childhood memories involved with Star Wars, right? Or somewhat of a religious experience, as I mentioned before. I really talked to fans like that who revere Anakin Skywalker. To them, it's almost like a religious experience watching Star Wars. Obviously, no need to say it. There's fans in England who actually officially put in their passport Jedi as their religion. That's how seriously they take it. Or there could be a very different emotional investment for somebody where a controversial topic is being explored. For example, let's say you have a young person, a young boy who is gay, right? They're not standard sexual orientation, and because they don't see often a representation of themselves in Star Wars, and suddenly a book comes out like The Rising Storm, right? The High Republic book, which has a teenage boy, a young teenage who is gay. And because it might take a very special meaning there, because a reader sees themselves for the first time represented in Star Wars, but then some adult person who doesn't believe in those ideas and doesn't feel that controversial topics should be represented in Star Wars might feel otherwise. And then you have conflicts of interest, and now you're once again get emotional and you try to fight other people off because your feelings on a certain topic are not agreeable with someone else. And I think that people automatically feel threatened that their feelings are being discarded. Like, well, hold on a second. If you feel a certain way about the High Republic, then why can't I also feel this way? Why can't we agree on something? Why do you have to be always right and I'm always wrong? Let's say, coming back to that same very example, that, you know, a young boy, that's all it means to him. They're not being brainwashed. This young boy is gay and he's picking up this book for the first time. And it's a wonder to him. It's a miracle. It's like, oh my God, so I'm not alone. So I don't have to live for the rest of my life in this and be constantly pressured by culture. And I come out and celebrate who I am as a person. Why would you want to take away that from somebody? And why would you construct an argument around like, well, I don't want controversy in Star Wars? Well, to that particular person, that's not a controversy. That's magical. They seeing themselves in it for the first. Like, I know firsthand that I talked to High Republic fans, younger fans, much younger than myself, who enjoyed it, and they loved the character of Bel Zadafar, who's obviously this, you know, black a young man, this Padawan, and he's very capable. I thought he was very dynamic and well-written character in the Star Wars book, and he wasn't there just for virtue signaling and for the grand corporations, Disney or Lucasfilm or anyone else, just to put him on the cover of the book and say, well, look, we have representation. It wasn't that example at all. He was a very well-written character, and that's what those young people responded to. And they said, well, isn't it wonderful to actually see a representation of myself in a book? I think it's a wonderful thing. And I think when we are being emotional, I think it's important to take into account how other people feel, not just ourselves. The next item I wanted to talk about, what divides the fans, is language. Language really, really matters. You know, stuff like, well, I hate it. George Lucas ruined my childhood. That was a big, big thing during the prequel era, where a lot of adult fans, like myself, we didn't enjoy it. Except I would never say something like this. That George Lucas ruined my. Even the popular South Park episode showed, right, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and both of them are kind of like ruining Indiana Jones on one side and then Star Wars on the other side. Very, very crude way of putting it. Or fire Kathleen Kennedy, you know, or Mandalorian sucks, or everybody on YouTube who celebrates new canon are just Disney shills and they're fake fans, they're not real. Well, to me, it's very important to have proper language, because language like this is destructive. Let me explain by what I mean by that. It's that kind of language doesn't stimulate a conversation. It doesn't create dialogue. It doesn't make people sympathetic to your cause. It just turns people off, because nobody wants to feel negative. Nobody wants to come off, let's say, from a hard day's work, jump into their favorite Facebook group about Star Wars and read comments like that. It's like, oh man, I dealt with so much stress during my work day. You know, my coworker or my boss said something offensive to me. And then you come and you have this piece of escapism, right, which is Star Wars. And when somebody says something like this, it doesn't add, in my opinion, any value to the conversation. That's not how you get Star Wars representatives at Lucasfilm or at Disney Books get to hear your story. That's starting off on the wrong foot. I think it's a lot more valuable when you are able to be patient and try to explain yourself intellectually and not always jump on an emotional response, and just be patient and tolerant of how other people feel. And thankfully, you know, in the Star Wars group that I created on Facebook, specifically for that objective, you know, just to have a discourse. I'd like to hear alternate opinions. I like to hear from fans who dislike sequels. I love hearing fans who grew up on prequels, and it means the world to them. For those of you guys who watch my podcasts, I constantly invite fans who are prequel fans. I'm not. They are. I think it's a lot more constructive and adds more value to the Star Wars fandom, where we can sit down and talk about, well, why do you feel this way? Why don't you explain to me? Not with one or two sentences with text where I don't get to even see the other face of the person. We actually get to sit down and two human beings trying to relate to one another why we love Star Wars, right? They have their own points, I have my own points, but we are all united by the one thing. And sometimes it just dazzles me how fans don't understand that. It's always has to be my Star Wars versus your Star Wars. It's a one thing. And what I'm trying to illustrate with this podcast, it's not a simple thing. There's not a single unique answer of what makes Star Wars. George Lucas can't provide it, the fandom can't provide it, and Kathleen Kennedy can't answer that question for us. That it's about Skywalker saga. It could mean an entirely different thing to a fan, and I think all of those ideas have merit. All of those ideas prop the Star Wars franchise and make it interesting. Anyway, I think we stayed on this topic for a little bit too long. Let's move to the final one, and that's the social media in itself and its influence on the way we interact with one another. That's what truly, to me, divides the fans. Yes, we had prominent voices, and yes, we had fans who always wanted to speak up and make their voices heard pre-social media generation, right? When the Star Wars prequels were coming out and a lot of fans weren't enjoying them, you would see them at different celebrations or at the red carpet premieres of the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. There's always a small group of fans who are standing there with their favorite banners and saying, cancel this, George Lucas destroyed my childhood, stuff like that. It was even televised, I think. It was showing those posters on the news channels. Okay, we had some of that, but social media interaction has amplified that technology in general 1,000-fold, right? You have this faceless form of communication where there's no human experience. It is so unnatural. I don't get to hear your response. I don't get to see how my words are having an emotional impact on who you are as a person. I'm just uttering whatever the heck I want to believe. I want to be in my own space and bubble of what Star Wars is, and everyone else should listen just to me. And what adds fuel to the fire is that all of these social media corporations are focused on controversy. They want fans to fight. They want clickbait articles. They want heated debates because all of it converts to clicks. All of that converts to profit. Because if you watch the Social Dilemma, the documentary that recently came out on Netflix, it talks about that at large. What happens is these media corporations are all fighting for your attention. They want you to sit on all of these platforms, pick your favorite one, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it may be, and just constantly engage other fans. They don't care if it's positive. They don't care if it's negative. They don't care if you offend each other. They try to say that they're moral and there's censorship involved. But just the way that my Facebook group has been moderated and some of the keywords that Facebook flags and say this is controversial or impolite or rude thing to say, they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. All they're interested in is teenagers and adults alike sitting on social media platforms and going at it with one another. That, I think, is the biggest component that truly divides the fans. Now, let's get to the final segment of my podcast and talk about what are some of the possible solutions. What is the way for Star Wars fans to move forward and keep celebrating and enjoying this franchise? Quick moment here. We're covering a lot, guys. So once again, I don't mean to pretend like I have answers or I know anything better than you guys who are watching this video and or some kind of psychiatrist or psychologist that has answers how to take fandom from the dark ages or how to rip it from Kathleen Kennedy. How can we move together and enjoy what is, not the wishful thinking of what we hoped would be? And the first thing I would like to mention is we should appreciate the complexity of art and how it communicates ideas. Star Wars invites different audiences. It has kids and adults. It has people from other cultural groups. It has people with different set of ideas, moral ideas, religious beliefs. And if you understand the fact that other people don't see the world that you do, that yours is only an interpretation of reality, and so is mine, and so is the person sitting next to me, and that we all gravitate to different ideas and concepts in Star Wars. Some people enjoy Star Wars purely for superficial things like cool action, lightsabers, special effects, creatures. You think a 4 or 5 year old who's watching Star Wars for the first time will understand its themes? Probably not. But they see Jar Jar, right? They see BB-8 and like, ooh, I want that one. I want more of that yellow you know, little ball droid. What is that? I want a toy. I want to go to the next Halloween dressed as, Rey Skywalker or Rey Palpatine, whatever you guys want to put her, right? So we all extrapolate different things from Star Wars. And if we understand that as fans, then we can bring everybody into the fold and say, well, okay, you like one thing, I like the other. You have Star Wars expanded universe on one end. Just because it's over, it's ended, it doesn't mean that someone else could enjoy the new Star Wars material, the new canon, and then go back and explore the other one. Be invitive, invite them over and say, well, okay, I'm not into this stuff that you're over here, but I know a lot about Star Wars Legends. Let me quickly tell you something that's interesting here. I think has a lot more value to us as fans. The next thing, very, very obvious, right? It's common sense. Respect alternative points of views, right? Because oftentimes we say things that we like or dislike based not on any sort of fact, right, or logical conclusion, but it's very emotionally driven. And I think emotions and feelings, it's a lot warmer than hard and cold intellectualizing of what Star Wars is, why we like it, what makes it so special cinematically, why it's the cold, the jewel American filmmaking. Emotions are the warm part. Emotions are the glue that bring us together because they allow us all to really connect with one another and make us participate in the Star Wars storytelling saga. For example, as I mentioned before, take a 4 or 5 year old girl, right, who is dressed as Rey, and this Halloween she went dressed as Rey, or as a very, very cute video of a young girl dressed as BB-8, and she goes to the Star Wars theme park, right? Try to tell that girl that Star Wars sequels are wrong and they're bad representations of Star Wars. She won't even hear what you're saying, right? Her emotions, her heart, her thoughts, her mind, her eyes are taking her in that direction. And I think we as fans should understand that it's about us. What makes this franchise so magical and special, it's us. It's not books. It's not the DVD sitting on your shelf somewhere back there. It's not your toys sitting behind the glass. It's people. If there are no people, if there is no eye to look upon a piece of art and interpret it and make it a part of their lives, right? It has no meaning. It's meaningless if there is no audience that is interpreting it. The next one I would like to say is to our fellow social media fans, addicts. I'm sorry, I said fans. Don't participate in social media wars. There's so many trolls that are vying for your attention and they thrive on conflict. They will deliberately go to different groups and just try to agitate you and say things that they themselves don't believe. I think there's a humorous component to it. I think we shouldn't be always so lowbrow and serious and take our favorite franchise seriously, and sometimes have merit, right? Have fun and laugh at our own expense and poke fun of the things that we love. That's a healthy thing to do, but not with malice, not to try to pose as a serious, a thought or a comment and try to make other people feel angry or special or, disbalance their point of view. Don't be swayed by clickbait videos or articles that are not based on any sort of reality, because it will only create unrealistic expectations for you and you will be disappointed when they don't come to pass. For example, there's this group of Fandom Menace fans, right, who it's their sole job to anger Star Wars fans, right? Every single video has Kathleen Kennedy or Ryan Johnson with a beaming laser eyes shooting off somewhere. And these fans always have sources, the inside sources on news outlets or ideas that, next month, Kathleen Kennedy will be fired. And, Dave Filoni will be the next president of Lucasfilm, or this or that. And most of the time, everything that they're saying is either a plain fact that we all knew, and these fans are putting their own spin on it, or they're plain lie to you. That's what they do. They just want your attention and they want clicks, and it's all there for the money. Don't follow them. Rely only on official sources of information, like the StarWars.com, Star Wars Newsnet. I've been going to those guys for many, many years. They do legit journalism with sources, citations. They clearly delineate with something as rumor, and they have legit sources of people who actually tell them that things may or may not happen. I would rather go to some official source like this than any YouTuber, right? I am a YouTuber. I can tell you tomorrow that Star Wars episode 10, 11, and 12 is coming out, and they will not feature any of the heroes that you love. I could do that. Should you believe me? No. Why should you believe somebody who has 80,000 or 100,000 followers? It doesn't make them journalists overnight just because they have a following and people who are agreeable with them. I would say engage in long form conversations. I think talking face to face to people is healthy. Talk to people in your group. If you're a high schooler, right? Talk to kids in your class or outside the class. It's like, hey, do you like Star Wars? What do you think about it? Find Facebook groups where you get like the idea, the environment, what it's like there, and if people are constructive, and you look at their group rules and they don't allow any sort of toxicity, participate in those groups where people try to be constructive, positive minded, and when they give critique, that's what they're doing. They're saying, look, I don't think sequels were good because reasons A, B, and C, and that's my belief. Not everybody should agree with me, but that's what I think. That, I think, has value and merit, and this should always be a part of Star Wars discourse. It should not be about like, oh, I love Star Wars. I'm a mindless drone that as long as something has Star Wars logo on it, I will eat up and I will be happy because I'm a, Disney cult follower or Disney show, something like that. I think all discourse is important. And at the end, I would like to reiterate, it's something that I mentioned earlier, is that constructive criticism versus disruptive behavior. That's very, very important to acknowledge and to address. Bashing other fans, thrashing filmmakers because they made films that you don't enjoy, review bombing, like I often see on official Star Wars Disney books. Every time a High Republic book comes out, there's people who come in and put these laugh out loud smileys out there and always comment that this book is trash, it's bad, it's good, guys, don't buy it. And these people themselves have not read those books. They're not Star Wars fans, because what fans do, they check things out and they say like, hey guys, I read this Mandalorian armor book of the bounty hunters. I don't think it was good. That's a good example of the Star Wars fan, because they did the work, they know what they're talking about, and they have personal strong opinion about it. So constructive criticism is good. I think we as fans should hold Star Wars content creators to a high standard. Don't settle for mediocrity. If you don't feel that, for example, Star Wars The Bad Batch show wasn't good, then go ahead and unsubscribe from your Disney Plus membership. If you think that Star Wars The High Republic books are bad, stop buying those books. Don't give Disney and Lucasfilm their money. I think our pockets and our wallets speak the loudest. The companies, larger companies, has been proven again and again, they start paying attention when you don't buy their product anymore. But understand the fact that if there is a high demand for something, and if there are some fans out there that are enjoying and supporting this stuff, well, maybe there is something to it. And you coming into discussion and say, well, the masses of people who went and saw The Rise of the Skywalker Episode 9, and the reason that it made money is because all of those people are stupid, and that J.J. Abrams is a Disney show, blah, 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 blah. You're not adding anything constructive to it. Get rid of it. First of all, people who already enjoy the stuff that you enjoy, they will never agree with you. And this kind of negative language will never have meaningful response to your thoughts. Nobody will ever come to you, oh, honestly, you think this is all trash and garbage? Well, let me hear what you have to say. I think you're onto something. Who wants to hear a person like this? If you really care for Star Wars and you really want a bright future for it, act upon it. Like, this is what I do. For example, I really enjoyed Kevin J. Anderson's a Star Wars young adult reader books called The Young Jedi Knights. It's a set of 14 books. They're really awesome. And unfortunately, they're out of print and they're not available digitally as ebooks either. What do I do about it? I don't go to every social media group and start crying about how, they canceled Expanded Universe. They are trashing everything that we fans love. I don't take it personally. Maybe there is not demand there. Maybe there's some copyright issues involved with Dave Dorman, the artist who drew the covers for those books, right? Maybe Disney or somebody else has to renegotiate commissions to Kevin J. Anderson for republishing those books, right? There could be a number of things that we don't understand. I don't sit there, I don't complain. What I did was I created a post on GoFundMe, not GoFundMe, I'm sorry, change.org, and I created a post and I spread it in every Facebook group that I want. Not to take credit for it, guys. It's an active way of saying like, hey, and I acknowledge Disney, I acknowledge Lucasfilm, and I said, thank you for giving us great content along the way for all these years, because I'm personally a huge fan of Star Wars canon material. I think all the books have been really wonderful, and I thank the Disney for that. And they say, well, along the lines of what you're doing right now and reissuing Star Wars Legends books that we all grew up with, could you please also reissue these books over here? And fans started, voting for it, leaving comments, and even people started making donations there. They're not making donations for me. I don't get anything out of it. I'm not becoming popular overnight from doing this. Why did I do it? Because I'm a Star Wars fan, right? And I wanted to take an active role of doing something about it. Anyway, guys, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think a question of what Star Wars was, is, and will be, it's grand, right? It's complex. There's never a simple answer to that. I don't think Star Wars may sound controversial. I never felt that Star Wars belonged just to George Lucas. It was a group of artists who helped bring his vision to life, and he was, right, the captain of the ship, and all of these people made an effort to make it great. And then you have Star Wars authors like Timothy Zahn, who came in and they gave us Coruscant, and they gave us Admiral Thrawn and Mara Jade and many popular characters. Many people were involved on the side of creating Star Wars along George Lucas. And many fans like myself and like yourself are part of what makes the ship afloat today. This is the reason that Star Wars is around. So long that it has fandom, so long that it has people who enjoy it, so long that it has people that are not willing to settle for mediocrity and speak in a positive manner about it and say like, look, we wish more for Star Wars. We don't think that the way that Luke Skywalker was written in episode 8 corresponds with the George Lucas we love and remember. Yes, we like the Luke Skywalker version from The Mandalorian, and please give us more of that. All of that contributes to Star Wars when we come together. This is where we are at its best. So my message, obviously, in this podcast was, don't be divided. Don't be angered by people who are out there just to get you sitting on social media all day long and be angry and find other yes man people who agree to that angry message. Like, yeah, you see, and banding into little armies, little groups who magically want Kathleen Kennedy to disappear just because they believe for some reason that she got in the way of their Star Wars. The message is, let's come together, let's celebrate Star Wars, and let's be positive and critical at the same time, and let's not be divided and our attention taken by what's unimportant. Let's focus on things which really matter, and it's to have more Star Wars in the future and celebrate it and really be happy about it. Anyway, guys, I think I've talked for long enough. I would love to hear your comments in this video section below. Let me know, what do you think on the current state of Star Wars? How do you personally feel about the fandom? Is anything of what I said in this video makes sense to you, or would you like to challenge any points that I have said? I would gladly engage you in a meaningful discussion, and I hope to hear from you guys. Take care. I'll see you next time.